So yesterday on the community tab, I posted I was going to do a 20 questions video. So we picked some of the top questions from that, and we're going to answer those today. So Kelly's going to read them off, and I will try my best to answer them.
Okay, question number 1. How about the difference between A, B, and C style injectors?
The A, B, and C, that's just a calibration rating. So whenever it's like your grades in school, did you get A's, B's, or C's? So when they calibrate the injector, if it's right on the money or very close to it, it gets an A. If it's not so close, it gets a B, and if it's even further away, it gets a C. And you need to keep the A's and B's together, or the B's and C's together, and not the A's and C's, because if you think about it, let's just go with a number. Let's say the injectors that I had were N70s. So when the calibration came out on those, some of them were 71. So let's just say that it's 71 gallons, just to make it easy for your math challenged people here. It would spray 71 gallons of fuel every time that it squirted, okay? And then a 72 would do 72 gallons, and a 73 would be 73 gallons. So do you understand why now I couldn't mix a 71 with a 76? It was when I'm getting like 5 to 7% more fuel on one cylinder than the cylinder before it, there was no way to be able to make it run smooth and good like that. So the A, B, and C is just a rating, a grade that it gets when it gets calibrated. So hopefully that makes sense to you. I've explained it in the replies many times on several different posts throughout, so I don't understand why it's still a question. It's an A, B, or C, just like you got your grades in school, and you want to keep the A students all together, or the B students all together, or the C students all together, or you can mix a few B's and C's and A's and B's, but you can't have the A's and C's together if you want the engine to run good. So hopefully that answers that question for good. Next one.
How many miles or hours can you expect a 2-stroke Detroit diesel to last between major overhauls?
First of all, there's two different kinds of overhauls. There is an in-frame and there is an out-of-frame. So an out-of-frame, everything is basically going back to factory. So you're getting a crankshaft that's getting remanufactured. It's going to be perfect surface on it, no wear. They'll take it up 10 thousandths or 20 thousandths. Actually, the old ones, old school, in the parts book, they go up to 60 thousandths oversized on the main bearings and rod bearings, that's a crazy number. I've never seen that. Nobody makes those bearings anymore, as far as I'm concerned, that I've been able to find. I think they go up to 30 now, but 60 is an amazing number. But anyways, an in-frame in-frame is more like a Band-Aid. So it's cheap, easy, quick to do, but you're never going to get the longevity out of it that you're going to get out of an out-of-frame. So an out-of-frame, I would expect 500,000 to 750,000 miles would probably be a good guess. It all depends on how you drive it and the conditions that it's under. So the slower RPM that the engine turns, the longer that it lasts. So if you have this like in a stationary generator or something like that, it's going to last a long time if it's turning at 1800 RPM forever and ever and ever and never exceeding that. Now my bus, the reason why mine's not going to last all that long, number one, I did an in-frame, not an out-of-frame. So my crank didn't get remanufactured, the bores for the pistons, the liners, none of that got messed with, so they're not quite the proper fit. There's a little bit of slop in them. That's all going to add to heat and that kind of stuff. So that's not going to last as long. Plus I have my engine turned up to 2400 RPM and you greatly reduce the longevity of the engine the faster that it goes. So that's kind of a loaded question. There, if it's turning over slow, lower RPM, real consistent like that, you don't overheat it, it's in a good situation like that, it's going to last a long time. The marine applications, when they're doing 3000 RPM with them and with a ton of horsepower behind it, it's not nearly going to last as long. So the easier you take it on them, the longer they last. It is a 1,000,000-mile engine, and it very well could make 1,000,000 miles from new, and mine probably has 1.5 or 2 million miles on it. I have no idea. But they do last a long time. They're very durable. If you don't overheat them, you keep oil in them. That's like the biggest thing that you could do. Hopefully that answers that.
What type of license do you need to drive a bus in America? Do you need to take a test, or can you drive on your car license?
Okay, two parts to this question. Is it a bus? Okay, if it's a bus where it has seating for more than, I don't know what the law is, I'm going to say 13 people or maybe 15 people, then that makes it a bus, and you do have to have a commercial license for that. Now, most of these old retired buses, like what I work on, are converted to an RV. That means that the title has been changed. It's no longer considered a bus. The title considers it an RV. And an RV, there's a loophole law in the U.S. where anybody can drive an RV with, you don't need any special licensing. Even if you have air brakes on it, you don't even have to have an air brake endorsement in most states. I think there are a couple states that may require that, but my state does not. Most of them do not. I'm going to say if there are states that require an air brake endorsement on an RV that has air brakes, it's probably 2 or 3. The licensing for that though, people lobbied, they want to be able to retire and get an RV, and they have a lot of money. They don't want to have to get a special test or pass a driving test, and they lobby the politicians. The politicians pass the laws that, because it's supposed to be anything over 26,000 pounds, but anything with an RV, it's completely exempt, and it's just a huge loophole for that. There's no extra safety, there's no inspections, there's absolutely nothing. It's all self-regulating, and as you can see from the vehicles that I work on, that nobody really seems to care much about it. They just hop in the vehicles and drive them. They don't understand how the air brakes work or how to adjust their air brakes to make sure the air brakes are working properly. I personally believe that something needs to get done just because there's too much crap going on with that. So, but anyways, to answer your question, if it's titled as an RV, which most of them are, anybody can drive it. Your 16-year-old daughter with her driver's license could go out and drive it.
Just was wondering the best spot to look for a classic coach similar to yours.
There's 3 Facebook pages that I really like that have a lot of vintage buses and RV conversions posted on them. 2 of them have real similar names. One of them is Bus Conversions for Sale, and the other one's Bus Conversions for Sale USA Canada or something like that. Those are 2 great sites, and there's another one called Craig's Bus Sales, Craigs, and it's all where people post listings on Craigslist all over the country when people are selling a bus or an RV conversion, vintage bus, something like that. Those 3 groups, I see tons of buses go through there. Buses just like mine for sometimes $5,000 or less. 4106s, 4104s all the time, MCIs, you name it, it's on there. So if you're not on Facebook, I'm not really sure. So you got to watch out. There's some scammy sites out there that repost. Like if you post a bus for sale somewhere, they'll repost it as their thing, but mark the price up, and they'll try to be the broker on it and stuff like that. And you got to watch out. There's a couple of bus sites out there that are like that, where it's not really their listings. They have nothing to do with it. They're just trying to scam on it.
Okay. I see the shifter on the steering column, and I understand that its part is mechanical. Is there mechanical linkage all the way back to the trans, or is there any hydraulic parts at the trans linkage for shifting?
Okay, my entire bus is 100% mechanical linkage for everything. There is no air assist clutch or anything like that. It's your foot and your muscles that hold it down against the springs. The linkage for the gear shifter is mechanical. It's push rod all the way to the back. There's bell cranks back there, and there's probably 50 foot. It's a 35-foot bus, but there's probably 50 foot, maybe more, of linkage just for the gear shifter on that. So lots of points that you have to lubricate and watch for wear on. But considering that it's 72 years old, it's doing real well.
What fuel or additives do you run, and most importantly, why?
I don't use a whole lot of additives. I do use a diesel fuel cleaner, injector cleaner, usually a Lucas, but it doesn't necessarily matter if there's something on sale. I use some anti-biological stuff in there. I've had some issues in that, especially with my rear tank with stuff growing in there. Because I used to run veggie oil in there, I would just mix the veggie oil straight in. The veggie is a great lubricant for the upper end on there. But you can add some motor oil to it. There's all kinds of stuff out there. There's research on things that are supposed to be better and worse. I don't run transmission fluid in the fuel or anything like that. So, but usually just a fuel additive, and then I run Lucas in the engine typically, and then the new engine we just put the Hyperlube in there. We'll see how that works out in the end, but so far I like it. Everything when we had the top end apart, it felt really good. Very slimy. The engine oil is real critical on that. They use a straight 40 weight engine oil that's CF2 rated. CF2 is the specific rating that's required for a 2-stroke diesel, and it needs to be a low ash oil. Low ash. The ash needs to be less than 1%. But there's several brands. Dello 100. Detroit makes one. Mobil makes one. Shell Rotella straight 40 weight is one of those CF2s. And so on. So there's a bunch of different ones that are available, but it needs to be that 40 weight CF2. You can get away with 30 weight, especially if you're in a warmer climate, but they did change the recommendation from 30 weight to 40 weight. So some of you may have a book that says 30 weight, but Detroit did change it to 40 weight across the board.
Have you ever had anyone attempt to steal your bus?
No, knock on wood, I've not. They probably wouldn't know how to start it. They probably wouldn't know how to drive it. And I have a whole bunch of GPS tracking devices hidden throughout the bus. Some of them are in tool cases and just all over the place. So they would, the chances of me getting it back would be pretty great because of what I've done. I don't want any of that stuff getting ripped off. So I got real secure with that kind of stuff.
Why don't you work on Prevost and electronic two-stroke diesels?
Oh my God, why don't I work on a DDEC, DDEC, two strokes? Because I don't have the patience for it, that's why. I like to, see something that's broken or not working. I mean, a diesel engine works for 3 reasons, okay? Fuel, compression, and air. That's all a diesel engine needs, okay? And then now they gum it up by adding a computer that'll make 900 different reasons why that thing won't run now instead of fuel, compression, and air. And I don't have the patience for that. That's the only reason I don't do it. If you ever fought with your computer at home for something, that I would want to take a sledgehammer to it and rip all that stuff out and try to get it to go back to mechanical. I don't care if you get more horsepower out of it or it's, better fuel economy. I don't like computers on there. I like the old school mechanical stuff, and that's why I work on, because I enjoy that. When I can hear it running or see what's going on and fix it, and a computer does not allow me to just do that.
Why did Detroit and others make a 2-stroke and not 4-stroke? Advantages, disadvantages?
Well, a 2-stroke is simpler, so it's less stuff going on. I mean, every time that piston's coming down, it's making power instead of every other time it comes down. And they went to 4-stroke because they could get a little better fuel economy with it later. They learned how to tweak the whole system better. I don't know. I don't work on 4 strokes, but I know that I personally like a 2-stroke. It just doesn't burn as clean. There's not enough time for everything to burn off, the exhaust, all the impurities and that kind of stuff, and it's just too much pollution and stuff like that. That's why they're gone. But I like them better.
Ever run across air starters and good and bad about them?
I've seen a couple air starters. They're really an annoying noise that they make, and you have to have compressed air to be able to start with them. But if you've ever had electrical problems with a starter, you don't have that with that. But they're still not problem free. And it's, I don't know, it's no real difference in my mind. I wouldn't take one off if a bus had it on it. And I wouldn't necessarily say I want to get an air starter to put on my bus. So if it's there, use it and it works, that's fine.
Would you consider swapping in a GMC air ride and getting rid of your leaf springs?
No, I would not. I do have airbags on one side of my bus right now to help out saggy leaf springs. And I tried to find shops that would do re-arching on them. I couldn't do it. I found one shop that would actually make them. They bought the original plans from GM. They have the blueprints where they can actually make the correct leaf springs exactly. And it was over $2,000 per side. And I just didn't have the money for that right now. So in the future, maybe I'll get that done or try to find a shop that'll re-arch them. But every shop that I called, they didn't want to touch it because I told them it was a motorhome. I'm like, I can't lie to them that it used to be a Greyhound bus. It's got 13 springs. The rear end weighs 18,000 pounds on it. Nobody wanted to mess with an old vehicle, and it was just very hard. So.
How did that roof coating material work? Were you able to see any substantial difference?
Well, I already had an elastomeric roof coating on my bus that had ceramic beads in it. The ceramic helps to work with the insulation and block the sunlight and the heat and stuff like that. So I haven't noticed any difference in that, but the difference in the texture of it and the shininess and how easy it is to clean and keep clean, it's much better than the bus coat, which I had. It was like BUSKOTE or something is how it was spelled, what I had before.
I think you need to add, though, we put a roof air conditioner up front the same time you did that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, because I added an extra air conditioner. It stays definitely cooler in the bus now, but no major difference on that.
How many miles do you cover with your bus in a year, and what kind of fuel mileage can you expect from a Detroit-powered bus?
We're about 20 to 30,000 miles a year. Last year was closer to 30. This year it'll be probably closer to 20. Um, Fuel economy, like on a 671 bus, like a 4104 or Silverside, something like that, you're looking right around 10 miles per gallon on the highway and about 3 miles per gallon in the city. That's kind of standard. So we don't do a whole lot of city driving. I try and stay out of heavy traffic and stuff like that. But most buses, you're probably looking 6 to 8 miles per gallon. But if you have an automatic, you're always going to get less fuel economy. So six to 7 would probably be more for an automatic. 7 to 8 would be for something with an 8V71 with a lot of weight. And the faster you drive on the interstate, 4106 will do over 90 miles an hour. If you drive that thing, at 82 mile an hour down the road, you're going to get terrible fuel economy. But if you keep it, 65, you'll get close to 10 on the highway in a 4106. So with a manual transmission. There was another part of that question, I thought, right? Or no? Is that it? Okay.
That's it.
Next.
I took automotive in high school. How much would those skills carry over to working on those larger old diesel engines?
Everything would carry over. It might be. They're really simple systems. There's nothing real. There's none of that computerized stuff. So if you understand the mechanics of how an engine works, that's all it is. It's just it's a piston and it goes up and down. It's got rings and bearings and this turns, that turns, and it's all the same stuff. There's nothing really hard about it. A wheel bearing is a wheel bearing, and it just might be larger. You need bigger tools. That's your little set of 3/8 ratchets and stuff like that. That's not gonna cut it. I mean, sometimes you're using 4-inch sockets and stuff like that. So everything. Once you get a bus, you need to get bigger tools.
Do you work on Series 60?
I do not. I only work on 2-strokes, mechanical diesels, Detroit's.
How many 671s have 4-valve heads from the factory? What are the benefits of 4 valves versus 2 valves if you're not adding a turbo?
There's almost no benefit to go from a 4-valve to a 4-valve from a 2-valve if you're not adding a turbo. There's no horsepower increase that you're going to get by doing that. So, as a matter of fact, they still make the 2-valve heads when they were making them. When they came out with the 4-valve, they didn't stop making the 2 valves. On slower turning things like generators and stuff like that, the 2-valve heads are preferred. But when you start getting to the higher RPM things, the 4-valve head does have some advantages. You get some torque increase, things like that. But it's not. You're not going to put it on, and it's not like a huge performance gainer. But once we go to a turbo, we really need to have that 4-valve head to be able to move the kind of air that we're going to be moving. It's just, somebody else can answer the exact specifications of it, but a 238 horsepower Detroit is still a 238 horsepower Detroit if it has a 4-valve or a 2-valve head on it. There's no difference on that whatsoever.
I would like to buy a bus, but having you travel there to evaluate it would be too costly. Would you be interested in setting up Skype FaceTime sessions for a fee to walk someone through inspecting a bus? Same question would apply if someone needed your consulting in troubleshooting or fixing a problem. Thanks in advance.
Yep, well, I already do offer a FaceTime or phone call. It's $50 for half hour if you're one of my Patreon members. I have a limited number of those available, but that allows you, if you're working on a project, your own bus, where we can go through things with FaceTime. I've got several people's buses up and running through FaceTime using that service. FaceTime is probably the same as Skype. I don't have Skype, but if that's all you had, I'm sure I could download it and figure it out. But it's easy for me to see something and with you there and talk you through it. And I've had several people where I've helped them get things going with that. And it's just a nice way for me to stay in contact with people to help them with their projects too, which is kind of what the Patreon side of it's for, so that we can do it every single month, so that you're working on something. But the rest of it, if you're just down and you're broke down or you need something, you can get a hold of me that way. And I'm usually not available during the day for that stuff, but my Patreon members do have a way to contact me 24/7 if they need to get a hold of me for that. Okay.
How do you set your repair fee, including your travel time? In what way do most of your customers hear about you?
My fees, I'll post a link to that in the description. It's pretty straightforward though. I basically charge $1 a mile to get to where I'm going, and if I have multiple people on the same trip, then they all kind of share a travel fee. I have a minimum service call of $250, just that's the fee to get me to you. So if you're only 10 miles away, you're still paying the $250 for that. But say you're 500 miles away, so your travel fee would be $500, and then I have minimums like I'm not going to spend, I'm not going to drive 5 hours to get 8 hours worth of work. So the longer I drive, the more hour minimum I do have. Most of my people find me just through Facebook or other online things, through the YouTube channel here, word of mouth. I mean, the bus community is pretty small, so I've got really great references, and a lot of people talk very highly about what we've done for them. And because our prices are half or less of what most shops are, and we know more about what we're doing than a shop. If some shops, no, that's not true. They're very knowledgeable on it, but the average run-of-the-mill shop has never seen the guy working there has never seen a two-stroke or one of these vintage buses. So you're paying them to learn about what they're doing, and it's just not like that with us. So.
Why did two-stroke diesels go away?
California, the cardboard, the emissions, the pollution, they're not as clean burning as the other stuff. So smog and pollution controls, and they're totally illegal now in California for commercial use. You can't have, if you have a truck, semi truck that you use commercially and it's got a two-stroke, it's illegal there. You can still have it as an RV private like that, but I don't know how much longer that's going to be. They're real tough on them, but I mean, and it's sad because I drive down the road and there's no smoke coming out of my bus, and I see modern trucks smoking like crazy driving. They start out at a stoplight and there's all kinds of smoke. And that's not, they don't have their stuff deleted. That's just how it is. And I guess it's the smaller particulate matter that you can't see or something. I don't know, but really my bus smokes 0.
What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow?
I love that question. Would that be a European swallow or an African swallow? I love that movie. I tried to share it with my kids, and I don't know that it really stands the test of time with kids nowadays. They don't have the attention span for that. My kids did not like that movie at all.
Neither did your wife.
Neither did my wife.
Your first steps and approach to bringing disused two-stroke diesels in general back to life. Do you just check for stuck injectors and send it, or is there a checklist you have?
There's a whole bunch of things I go through. Injectors are very, very important on that. But the things that make a diesel run, fuel, is it got fuel. We got to make sure the fuel's good, fuel filters, there's fuel in the lines. We got to make sure there's no stuck injectors. That's number one there. And you can't just check for a stuck injector. You got to make sure the engine's been barred over a couple of times for the injectors to actuate and everything. And that's usually when they're going to stick, is during that. Make sure the air filters are cleaned out. You don't want to ingest. I had several of them where they were filled with water and they would have ingested water and bent rods right off the bat. So I want to make sure that the air intakes are cleaned out. You can have birds' nests and all kinds of crap in there, but it's usually water is the problem. Air filters, so air, compression, and fuel. That's all that they need to run, and you just need to make sure that all those components are working properly before you hit the go switch on them.
Are you going to keep the propane injection when you switch to turbo, and can you run an intercooler?
My block does not allow an intercooler on it. But yes, I'm going to keep the propane injection on turbo. It'll be even more pronounced of an effect with the turbo to use it. So I'll get a much higher horsepower gain with it once I have turbo.
What is on your wish list of what is on your wish list of to-do items for Lenny?
Oh God, it's probably like a mile long. Turbo would be like a major thing when we do that, but that's going to take a whole huge rebuild. He needs a new clutch, which I have the clutch. I just got to have the time to put it on now, and I'm carrying it with me, so in case I have an issue on the road, I've got the parts. Everything's there to do it. The rear main seal, everything. I mean, when I replace the clutch, I don't know when I'm going to do it, but I've got it. But there's a whole bunch of things. We're continuing. My wife wants more countertop space in the kitchen area and like butcher block type thing. Most of it's more comfort stuff on the inside. When I built the conversion, it was really just me traveling around working on buses. She wasn't with me, so now that she's with me, it's a little different. And we're living in it mostly full time now, so things are even different with that. But little things, design things on the inside, things for comfort of home type stuff. We got the internet booster and stuff like that now. That's a huge help. And we added another TV up front this year with the Amazon Fire Stick. We added the other air conditioner. So there's just a whole long list of things. But mechanically, the turbo and the rebuild that we're going to do with that, it's going to be pretty involved. the tires that are getting ready to go on it, the new power inverter that's going in it. So we're slowly getting all these things, and most of they're for creature comfort things. The power inverter so we can have the computer to do a lot more of the YouTube stuff on the bus when we're not plugged in. We try to always have power where we're at, but it doesn't always work out that way.
What's the weak link to inline Detroits? And what is the most overbuilt part of an inline Detroit?
The weakest link of any of the Detroit two-strokes is heat. You cannot overheat them. If they get hot, they break really, really quick. If you don't get them hot and you keep oil in them, that's probably their second weakest link is leaking oil. They tend to do that from just about everywhere. You always want to make sure you have your gauges, temperature gauge, oil pressure gauge. If you don't have those two things, you have no business driving that thing as far as I'm concerned. And the bearings and everything are so overbuilt on them. That's why I love them so much. I prefer an inline over a V.
If you could redesign the interior of your bus, what would you add or subtract? Any regrets on your current setup?
No, that's kind of the same as the other one. I mean, my wife wants the butcher block and more countertop space in there. She, when we got it, it was really just for heating food when I was on the road, stuff like that. But now she's actually cooking and baking and that kind of stuff. So that's a little different necessity than what I had built it for. Definitely got to keep her happy.
What's next? Sell your Indianapolis home and travel full time? Visit some exotic locations? Go see other YouTubers? I know Danger Stew is out of the question, but I'd love to see you do a project with Musty One. Too bad the winds are no longer stateside. Maybe a battery upgrade with Jenny Garcia in LA, or visit with Beginning from This Morning in Arizona.
Yeah, I would like to sell the house here in Indy and be on the road full time, but my kids still live here, so it's a little bit hard to do that. They're older though; they're in their 20s, so it wouldn't be too hard to say, "Get your own place." But they take care of everything while we're gone, so that's fine. But yeah, we're just going to keep traveling and working on buses. I plan on visiting some YouTube friends in the future, and Stu is not out of the question, just so you know. I won't be able to drive my bus there, but we could probably go down there and visit him. That would be fun. And I've talked to Juan about coming and doing some work on his bus too. So we'll see in the future when that's going to happen or not. But I mean, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing, and hopefully the channel will continue to grow too.
What, in your view, is the best version of Detroit engine created to run in a bus?
Well, the best bus engine. Well, there's two. I'm tied for first place on this one. So this inline 671, that I have a love affair with. I love that engine, but a 12V71 in a bus like an MC6 is pretty awesome. I can't even say it without smiling. So MC6 is probably my second favorite bus. Open-ended question: is there something you need? Is there anything that I need? More subscribers. How's that? No, I'm continuing trying to get some sponsorship for the channel. Money would help out a lot with things like that. More tools, better tools, things like that. Things that make life a little easier. That jack that we just got and the new jack pads and things like that. And it's a never-ending cycle of I need this, I need that kind of thing. So, but just trying to get the bus. One of these days I got to go through and completely rewire that bus, and that'll be a video that will make me a lot of money, because when you see what the wiring on that bus, that is 72-year-old wiring on 90% of it. It's cloth coated wiring that's corroded, and if something goes bad, I've run some new wires for it, but I mean everything just needs to be pulled out of there and redone. But it is everything, every electrical wire that's in that bus right now does work. I don't know for how long, and every once in a while things go sparky, and then I have to fix something, but it's a challenge.
What's your cheat list when checking over a Detroit that's been sitting a while prior to startup?
It's kind of the same as the other one. I want to check for stuck injectors. That's like the number one thing there. Make sure there's oil in it. Make sure that, the coolant is in it. The air intake is clean. We went through all that stuff. There's nothing major. I've got several videos on, rescuing old buses, and I go through all those processes that I check. And
you talked about getting larger tires for the rear of the bus. How will that affect your speed in relation to accuracy on the road And are the tires on there now the right size or not?
Well, originally had 1020s, and they don't make 1020s anymore that I'm aware of. It actually originally had white walls too, which is how awesome would that be to have white walls on there again. Nobody makes them. I talked to Coger, and they won't do it for that. But somebody had them made for the Pray to Progress buses, so somehow they're out there, but I've never seen that. But it's not going to affect my speedometer at all because my speedometer, I use GPS for that, so that'll tell me the accurate on there. But they are supposed to be a little bit larger tire than what is on there now.
Last question.
Okay.
What made you fall in love with your beautiful wife? How long have you all been married? And has she driven that dang bus yet?
She has not driven that dang bus yet, but that is going to be a fun video when I teach her how to do that. I met her when she was in high school, and we've been married for 26 years, and that's all.